Hello and welcome to this webinar session. Today I will talk about our recent work on grounded large vision language model for remote sensing applications. My name is Salman Khan. I'm one of the faculty members in Computer Vision Department at MBZUAI University of Artificial Intelligence. And here we have co-authors Karthik, Suhail, Zamil, Abhijit, and my colleague Professor Fahad. So if you look at the recent remote sensing image analysis approaches using artificial intelligence, we generally find models which are task specific. So for example, one model will be trained and used for land cover classification. So it can take in an image and can classify whether this image belongs to the forest category or the water category or urban area and so on. And similarly, there are other specialized tasks which are defined in remote sensing image analysis. For example, change detection, where you can assess the deforestation effect, you can understand the effects of fire, damage due to different natural and man-made events. Similarly, we also find efforts which are very much specific to the sensor which is used for training the model. And for example, there are models specifically developed for SAR imagery, for hyperspectral imagery, or optical remote sensing imagery. Similarly, there are some models that only offer image level understanding and they cannot take in textual inputs. And some of the models which do take in textual inputs, they are very much again focused on specific tasks, for example, image to text retrieval. And similarly, we also have a lack of conversational capabilities, meaning the models and systems are not as interactive with the human users, and they take in these human inputs and the responses in a very fixed template. So if you look at the recent generative AI advancement, this is really a transformative way to redefine how humans connect and communicate with artificial intelligence agents and models. And the main capabilities that we have got from these recent advancements, for example, ChatGPT, Gemini model from Google, or Claude model from Anthropic, is surrounded around the conversational capabilities. So how these AI models can generate and understand human-like natural text responses, which are provided to them. Now, some of the downsides of these great advancements are these are closed source models, so it is definitely of great interest for us as academicians. Is how we can design open source models which people can reproduce and build upon and take them to the level of closed source models to provide more accessible infrastructure to the research community. Similarly, the existing models are typically have generic knowledge and they are not specialized into remote imagery. There's also a lack of transparency in the sense that we don't know which data is used for training, what are the backend kind of rules which are designed to generate the responses that we're getting from these closed source models. And some of these models, for example, up until some time ago, ChatGPT was not supporting multimodal capabilities, but now the new versions, GPT-4 and GPT-4o, are offering that capability, but this capability is lacking, for example, in Claude models. So our interest here is to see how we can develop domain-specific vision and language models for remote sensing imagery that kind of unifies the existing sort of isolated tasks in the remote sensing literature. And in this actually endeavor, the first thing we are focusing on is to actually define a natural language interface that can interact with these remote sensing large multimodal models and can deliver all these tasks in a unified manner. And some of these tasks, for example, that we are aiming at is scene classification, image captioning. So if you give an image, you want to describe it and have a description of it, that capability should be there. Similarly, if we have a remote sensing image, which typically are encompassing kilometer area, and the user specifies a specific region within this image, the model should also be able to explain that specific region. So this is the region captioning task. And similarly, for the visual question answering, if there is any intelligent question about the input remote sensing image, the model should be able to answer that. And the multi-turn conversation should be possible. So the user asks one question, then it switches to another task, another type of question. Model should be able to seamlessly support all of that. And one of the main things that we are also targeting is the phrase grounding or localization capability. So let's say the model generates a response, which is shown in the top field here on the right-hand side. So the query is describe the image in detail, and the system says, okay, the image is depicting a scene with multiple buildings, houses, trees, small vehicles. And if we want to actually locate them or ground these objects in the visual imagery, that should also be possible. So the model should not only give me a textual response, it should also tell me where these objects occur in the given input image. So for example, in this case, the red color text basically means that this text corresponds to this red bounding box. So these are the buildings. These are the kind of the houses. The trees are outlined with the green box. So these are the spatial location that the model is also able to provide back to us in the GeoChat model. And similarly, more detailed information about the tennis courts, what is their number, what is their location, and so on. That is the main grounded image capturing task that we're targeting. But in a sense, this task, generic task, also solves relatively simpler tasks as well. So for example, if you look at the left, we have the visual question answering task where the user input is also textual and the output response from the model is also in the form of text. So in this case, the user asks about how many tennis courts are visible. The model says, okay, there are 10 tennis courts available in this image. And if we look at again on the right-hand side, scene classification. So the user says, okay, what kind of scene is this? And the model will say, okay, this is an aerial view of an urban area. So it can also classify it into many other categories like rural, this is a water body, and so on. Then we have referring expression task as well. So the user can provide an expression, and the response which is needed in this case is a localization, basically referring to the expression which is provided. So the user says tennis court at the bottom left, and the model will generate a bounding box locating that specific expression in the image. And we also have region captioning. So in this case, the user provides a bounding box, and this is the blue box, which is shown on the top left corner of this image. And the user is asking, what is the object present here? And the model will respond, okay, this is a small car which is present here. And it also localizes that. And similarly, if you want to just have multi-turn text-based conversations that models like GPT and Claude and Gemini are popular for, that can also be done on top of this remote sensing image. So the goal here is really to make the remote sensing imagery more accessible to non-experts, generic users that want to look at a specific area. They have different queries, and the model should be able to answer those queries in an interactive manner. So to summarize, the key highlights we have in GeoChat case is a domain-specific geospatial GPT model, which can take in visual inputs as well and can perform a suite of tasks in a unified manner, ranging from simple tasks like image captioning to visual question answering, and then to more complicated and complex tasks as well, such as grounding description and referring expression of text as well. In this case, we developed and designed the first remote sensing multimodal instruction data set in order to train these recent vision and language models with the domain-specific data to equip them with the capabilities which are relevant to the remote sensing Earth observation domain. So we curate a set of close to 320,000 image and text conversations on top of the remote sensing imagery, and this data is then used for training and benchmark. We also propose comprehensive evaluation benchmark to compare the future upcoming remote sensing geospatial vision and language models as well. I would now like to briefly touch on to the core architecture. So what is the architecture that we're using which enables us to actually perform the suite of tasks for the remote sensing domain? So if we look at the bottom row, so we take in an input remote sensing image, and this is then tokenized. So a model is actually used to convert this into a visual feature space as well. In this case, we are using a Clip VIT model at 334 by 334 image resolution, and then through an adaptation block. So this is an adapter which takes in this visual input features and then maps it to the domain of large language model domain so that it can interpret and understand that visual imagery given a query from the user. So we also enclose this image features within tags. So im start and im end are indicating the tags which are used to tell the large language model that this is a visual imagery for the remote sensing. Then we also have certain task-specific prompts. I will talk about them in a while, but basically these task-specific prompts direct the model to perform a specific task. So for example, if the user wants referring expression segmentation, then this task-specific prompt would be refer, then which is shown on the top left corner. And in this case, the user will actually ask, okay, refer football ground on the right-hand side, surrounded by trees. So this will tell the model what kind of capability the user is trying to actually achieve and is interested in responses that relate to this kind of capability. So in this case, the model will actually locate and detect that particular expression which is input by the user. Similarly, for the case of region captioning, the model will say, the user will say, identify what is present in this area, and the model will, try to describe that and caption that yellow box which is shown here. So it says a basketball field at the bottom of the image. Similarly, if you want to do just simple image description, the user can ask, okay, can you please describe the image? The model will try to actually not only generate a response, but also visually ground all these objects in the visual imagery. In this case, for example, it localizes the basketball ground, the two football grounds, and the trees which are available on the right. Similarly, we can also do visual question answering. So how many football grounds and basketball courts are present in this image? So the model in this case will just generate a textual response outlining the answer to the given question. So for this task, we developed a GeoChat dataset, as I mentioned earlier, which comprises of nearly 320,000 instructions. So out of these 320, roughly 306,000 instructions are used for training, and a separate set of 12,000 instructions are used for testing. And we pass in this image and text pairs to the model in training using a standard which is shown in color in the first pointer here. So we say, okay, user, and this indicates that this is a query to the model. And then we have the start and end text for image, and then the task identifier, which says which task the model is expected to perform in this case. And the assistant will then go on and generate a response. And if you look at the data, we have 30,000 samples with detailed descriptions. And in this case, we have suitable prompts which say, okay, describe the image in detail. Similarly, we have multi-round conversations as well and more complex questions, which are roughly 75,000 in number. Then we repurpose some of the existing remote sensing datasets in this instruction set format. And in this case, generally, the response which is expected is a single word. So we focus here both the disaster-based images, for example, coming in from the FloodNet, as well as generic visual question answering benchmarks, which are developed for remote sensing imagery. Similarly, we also have grounded descriptions. So this is obtained by repurposing the existing remote sensing object detection datasets. And similarly, we use the same kind of data for region captioning as well, and for referring expression as well. So this is about, again, the data set. So what are the constituent existing data sets which we repurpose in this case? So DOTA and DEOR are used for the object detection part, and these are, again, repurposed to satisfy a certain task that we're conducting, for example, the referring object detection. And similarly, the FloodNet and ILRBAN or remote sensing VQA data set is used for visual question answering. And the last one is used for scene classification as well. All right, so in this case, we develop an automated pipeline to derive and add certain attributes which are very important for the remote sensing imagery. In this case, we want to have this information about the relative size of different objects, their shape, their color information, their position. So, are they located to center of the image, or they are at the periphery of the image, and so on. So all of this information is obtained by a semi-automated pipeline where we design certain rules to actually associate certain categories. For example, we have associations based on the category relationship. So, for example, a plane and a ship are, that is decided at this stage in the attribute A1. Similarly, we talk about color attributes, whether this object is gray or white, yellow, and so on. We talk about the relative size, so whether a certain ship is small or large in comparison to other ships which are present. And similarly, we talk about the relative location, is this the top right, bottom corner of the image, and so on. And what are the relationships? So we also try to actually develop different relationships between objects, whether a car is parked in the parking lot or somebody is driving through a certain road or area. And we try to actually also include those kind of object relationships in the data set as well. So this is an example of the annotation that we have. So if you look at the left top, we have object attributes and relationships. So for example, it says there is a shape shown in blue bounding box, which is white in color and it's relatively small compared to its overall size comparison to other shapes which are observed in the same data set. And it is located on the top left corner of the image. And similarly, we can also associate similar kind of attributes to other objects which are present, such as harbor and trees. Now, these object level attributes and relationships are also converted to reference expressions. So we know the bounding box location. We convert and derive these reference expressions for all of these objects. So for example, a small gray ship anchored at large harbor on bottom right. So as you can see, this is also specifying the relative location of these objects, their certain attributes, their relationship in the context of the scene itself, so that the model can actually pick up those specific objects based on the user query. Similarly, we put in information on region captioning. So for each bounding box, we can ask for a caption indicating the size of the object. This is small, this is located at this particular location, this is the color of this object, and all of that information is used to derive and train the model on the region captioning task. So all of this is passed through the LLM, and this enables the large language model to actually be able to converse with the user towards several downstream tasks, which include multi-type conversation, detailed descriptions, complex reasoning, and grounded description tasks as well. So this is basically the data pipeline, and with this I would like to show some qualitative examples of GeoChat on aerial images. And the first example here, we are asking about what is the number of large ships present at the harbor at the center of this image. And if you look at this query, this is kind of a complex query, and this is images taken for the aerial imagery of Abu Dhabi city. And this was not included in the training data sets because this is taken from the Google imagery. And in this case, the query which is presented, it is talking about the relative attributes of the object as well. For example, large shapes, and then the location, relative location of the ships as well. So which ships which are close to the harbor at the center. And the model actually is able to understand that query, look at the image, just provide it as a reference, and identify that there are roughly a total of 9 large cruise ships which are tucked at the harbor at the center, along with many other small and medium ships as well. Similarly, this is again kind of a new image from the Reem Beach at Abu Dhabi. So of course, again, these kind of data was not used for training because we were training on international data sets, which are available open to the academic community. And in this case, the user says, please describe the image in detail. The model goes on, this image appears to be of a beach and with a mangrove cover at the bottom. So it is able to understand, this peripheral information available as well in this visual imagery. And there's an urban area at the top Then it talks about the football and basketball grounds, which are available, to the center right area as well. And then it talks about, a highway with multiple cars, which is at the top left corner of this image. And it also then talks about, the generic overview of this image, which is basically there are a number of buildings indicating a residential area on the beach line. And this is for the Reem Beach area in Abu Dhabi. Similarly, we can pose a more difficult question as well. So where are the tennis courts at the bottom, and where is the water body located? So in this case, the model will actually draw the bounding boxes around those specific objects which are asked to the query. So in this case, it says, okay, there are three tennis courts which are outlined with the red bounding box on the bottom, and there is one water body which is again outlined with the bounding box. So as you can notice, the model is able to take in both visual prompts, which are, for example, bounding box for the case of region captioning and similar tasks. It's also able to take in the textual inputs, for example, the query the user is presenting, and it can generate responses both in text as well as the visual locations of certain objects as well. So based on this, we also do comprehensive quantitative evaluation across a number of data sets. So in this case, we are on the left, we are evaluating this model, which is trained using this instruction data pipeline in a zero-shot manner for scene classification data set. And we compare with several other vision language models, which are generic and not specifically developed for remote sensing imagery. And we noticed, considerable gains on these data sets compared to the generic approaches. Similarly, on the right-hand side, we compare on the visual question answering task on the RSVQA dataset. And again, we compare with both domain-specific methods, for example, RSGPT and RSVQA, as well as the generic models such as Lava, QuenVL, and MiniGPT v2. Again, we notice that the GeoChat model performs favorably well in both these tasks. We also evaluate on visual grounding and conversation. So this was something which was never done before. So our data itself actually enables this grounding capability as well. So we define the evaluation protocol, and we notice that in comparison to a baseline, which is also trained for the task in this case, MiniGPT v2, we perform favorably well. And in terms of reference expression, grounding, we also perform favorably well. However, there are certain, again, limitations because this is a very challenging task. So we notice that for small objects, specifically, the model is struggling to perform well. And one of the key reasons for this is that the resolution that we are looking at and the visual encoder that is used currently in our pipeline relatively looks at coarser resolution, which means that many small objects which are very frequent and common in remote sensing imagery, they are missed in this case. So what are other potential use cases? Because as we motivated at the beginning, these kind of capabilities can potentially be used for several downstream tasks. And here, I would like to just showcase some hypothetical scenarios where the model might be very useful if extended in a proper way. So, for example, in this case, we show an image for the Corniche Beach in Abu Dhabi, and the user may ask, okay, what are the number of buildings present in a given area, and what would be the estimated power consumption for these buildings? So, as you can see, this query basically requires relatively deeper understanding of the visual imagery and also do multiple tasks. So, for example, first of all, getting an idea about which area this could be, and the LLMs using their generic information can bring in some extra context from their knowledge base. And then it is really around counting the building, estimating the height, perhaps by looking at the shadow length or using again its generic information about the Corniche Beach in Abu Dhabi, and then estimating how many people might be living here, and then estimating what is the general average power usage of a unit, an apartment, and so on, using all of that information to come up with an approximate number for this query. Similarly, this is a power plant near Masdar city, where the university is located. And again, an intelligent question may be posed around what is the estimated carbon emission of this power station, and how would you rate it in terms of sustainability? Again, the model needs to actually bring in the extra context, look at the visual imagery, what a particular part we are talking about, and then fuse all of this information to provide more detailed insights as well. And similarly, we can also ask about, for example, this is a image for a waterway near Abu Dhabi. In this case, we are saying how many ships are present in this scene, and the model is able to understand the query and generate response. Okay, there are 9 cruise ships present, which perhaps indicate that this is a tourist spot because there are a number of harbors as well. So I would like to show a small video to just motivate some of the use cases and show some qualitative examples of the model as well. So in this case, we are showing an example of playing field, and the user asks a question and then generate the particular location, and the user can then provide another query on a specific location itself, just saying, okay, is there an intersection in the image? The model will say, okay, yes, there is an intersection here. Where it is located, the model says it is located at the center of the image. So this is a flooded area. The user may ask, okay, how many buildings are flooded? Answer in one word or a short phrase. Say 3, are there any vehicles which may be affected? I'll say yes. And similarly, the user can, in an interactive manner, ask the queries as well. So this is an airport facility. So the user is asking, okay, where is the Boeing plane? And it locates that. And then similarly, other plane as well, it can locate. Are there, where are some buildings close to the left plane? So it locates those as well using red bounding box. So in this case, what is there any vehicle? Where is it located? What is the color? So we are talking about attributes, location of the object, and so on. So it gives in response which outline all the details. Similarly, it can, relocate the basketball, the playing field as well. The user can also give a query. In this case, it outlines a bounding box over a car. So it says this is one vehicle on the left of the image. We can also present another query. On the location, it says this is the basketball court at the top. All right, so these were some of the qualitative examples from the GeoChat model, which we showed through a demo. So just to summarize, GeoChat is basically a unified remote sensing vision and language model, which can take in remote sensing imagery and the user queries, open-ended user queries, and generate response to that. We presented a new instruction following dataset for remote sensing applications, which has roughly 318,000 conversations. We also showed that how through a unified model you can address multiple remote sensing tasks using the same natural language interface. We demonstrate that we also demonstrate strong results on both supervised as well as zero-shot learning scenarios using the GeoChat model. Now, there are a number of further improvements because this is still a preliminary effort in this direction. It was one of the first efforts on remote sensing, vision, and language models. So we see a number of future directions which can help further improve the responses from these kind of models. So first of all, we believe very high resolution imagery it still would suffer with the GeoChat model because of the low resolution on which the image encoder is performing. We cannot also perform multispectral imagery analysis. Right now, we are not tackling the time sequence data as well. Right now, we're generating bounding boxes, but then a user may want to have a pixel accurate segmentation mask in the output. And similarly, how we can extend the capability of GeoChat kind of models which are operating in English to other languages. And it might be needed to have. And another important question is to see how we can deploy these models on edge devices and efficient platforms, which would require rethinking the architecture and design elements in our model. Similarly, further downstream tasks can also be added, which we are not tackling here, that may relate to change detection as well over temporal sequences, as well as more downstream tasks. For example, identifying the canopy height, assessing damages due to different climatic events, and so on. With this, I would like to thank you for attending this webinar session, and we will switch on to a short interview from our students, which led this project. Thank you.
Our main contribution was finding out the limitations of the existing vision language models for remote sensing tasks. Further, we were involved in creating a novel instruction tuning dataset for remote sensing conversation tasks, and then we also created a comprehensive benchmark for evaluations. Then we collaborated as a team to do extensive evaluations and set up baselines.
So what we found exciting about this project was its novel approach to address the challenges of remote sensing imagery. General domain visual language models often struggle with the high resolution and the multi-scale data and the small object detection that are very crucial for the remote sensing task. Our work GeoChat pioneers a versatile visual language model that not only addresses the that not only answers the queries, image-level queries, but also perform the region-level dialogues and do the visual grounding while it's generating its responses. Our work opened up many possibilities for the new application in the environment monitoring, urban planning, and disaster management tasks that require very fine-grained and accurate remote sensing analysis. Our primary aim is to extend the GeoChat capability to handle the multispectral and the temporal data, which will broaden its application towards the more of Earth observation tasks.
Another area we can dive into is making the model smaller and efficient while increasing its performance so that it can be run on edge devices.